If you're someone that doesn't think the Big 12 or the ACC can get two teams into the playoff this year like the ACC did last year, you're wrong.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your daily source to stay up to date with the biggest stories in this, the greatest sport on planet Earth. The Kansas Jayhawks outlook this year, in the words of a Kansas player, will be on today's show. I'll have my record prediction as well, and it's G5 Friday, so you got to stick around for that on the program, which is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Football season is around the corner, a week away, as a matter of fact. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. College football next week. Are you excited? Because I am fired up. So last year, I said the Big 12 was a one-bid league. Big 12 fans didn't like hearing that very much. They wound up being a one-bid league. I thought the ACC would be a one-bid league. And then I watched something unfold that was a little unexpected. And the ACC winds up getting two teams into the playoff, 11-2 SMU, Clemson at 10-3, with the automatic berth to the college football playoff. How can that arise again this year? Now, if you have two in the ACC or in the Big 12, and I'm not just basing this off of what I think the college football world should do, but also based on what we've seen from the committee so far. Only 1 year of data, admittedly, for how they act and react to things in a 12-team playoff. But last year, 11-win SMU, 11-win Indiana were both in the college football playoff. They did not win their conference championships. They did not have the greatest strength of schedule metrics in the eyes of the committee, and they still got in because they went and took care of business. Now, some other teams maybe didn't get as much respect or credit as they should have. BYU pops to mind here because they went 10-2 and they won at SMU, who was a playoff team. People forget about that game. It was ugly. 18-15 was the final score, but they figured it out. They found a way to win. But when it came time to discussing at-large playoff spots, 10-2 Miami and 10-2 BYU were nowhere to be found. Well, that's unfortunate. That doesn't mean it's always going to be that way. You might need some help in some certain spots, but I've compiled a little list of an alternative format to how, or alternative manner, I should say, in which the Big 12 or the ACC could get two teams into the playoff. You don't just, manner number one is the two teams that meet in your conference championship game have at least 11 wins. The precedent so far, and I think if you went back and looked at the rankings in the four-team era, you'd see this as well. If you have 11 or more wins, you're going to get in, as long as you're in one of the Power Four conferences, Big 12, ACC, SEC, or Big 10. You're going to get in. And guess what? I think that you should. If you lose your conference championship game like SMU, that shouldn't be a punishment. You should be rewarded for getting there. SMU was. So if you have 11-1 against 11-1, I think both those teams are getting into the playoff. If you have 11-1 against 12-0 or 12-0 against 12-0, both those teams are in the playoff. That's asking a high bar. So I got to thinking, how could the ACC or the Big 12 get 10-2 teams into the playoff? Is it truly impossible? It's a lot easier for the ACC than it is for the Big 12. Doesn't mean it's impossible or doesn't exist. So the hypotheticals here that are, of course, contingent upon teams going out and having exceptionally great seasons, but in leagues where I think parity is going to reign supreme, Clemson is very good. We've seen Clemson get upset many times over the years. Texas Tech's my number one team in the Big 12 in my preseason power rankings, but is there a Grand Canyon-sized gap between them and the number 4 or 5 team? No, I don't think so. I think there's 7 teams that can win the Big 12 this year. How could those conferences get a 10-2 team, at least into the playoff discussion, where BYU and Miami didn't feel like they were a lot last year, but could they do that this year? Here's how. Teams go unbeaten with a quality enough non-conference slate that keeps them in the thick of things, that has them on the committee's radar and the public's radar to create, the campaign and the narrative and all that sort of stuff throughout the season. Early on, they go win some high-profile non-conference games. They lose 2 conference games because turns out their leagues are good and everything's a lot more balanced in college football than maybe it used to be at times. And they're sitting there at 10-2 going, wait, we lost these 2 games in really close fashion. One was on the road, one was a neutral site or whatever the case may be, but look at these quality non-conference wins. So here are the options. I think there are just 2 in the Big 12, and I have to factor in a reasonable projection for a team going through and finishing the season 10-2. Like Boston College, for instance, plays at Michigan State and at Notre Dame. Okay, I'm not including them as one of the teams that, well, if they were to go 10-2, because I don't think Boston College is capable of going 10-2. They could be okay. They could be fine. I don't think they're going 10-2 at this point in time. One day, we'll see. But right now, I'm not predicting that for the Eagles. I'll start in the Big 12. There are 2 teams here that have a legitimate chance. Number 1, the best chance, the most likely at-large 10-2 Big 12 playoff team are the Baylor Bears. Because Baylor has a non-conference slate that I commend them for tremendously. They are playing Auburn at home week 1, and they are playing at SMU. Now, do they need some assistance with those teams being good and maybe even better than I think they are this year? Yes, absolutely. I think SMU's an 8-9 win team. You'd probably need them to be a 10-win team. And Auburn, who I think is a 6-win team, you'd probably need to be a 9-win team and in the top 25. But is that impossible? Is that out of the realm of possibility? No, certainly not. So if Baylor beats Auburn and SMU and then goes 7-2 in their 9 Big 12 games and is sitting there at 10-2 but not even in the conference championship game, yeah, they should get discussion. Of course they should. Will they get in? We'll see. But is that worthy of discussion? Yes. Yes, I believe so. If those things happen. How about Oklahoma State? A team, again, who I think is a bowl team. I don't know if they're better than that, but maybe they have an Arizona State type resurgent season this year where they pop off and they win double-digit games, but they don't go to the Big 12 championship game. Do you realize who they play week 2? They play at Oregon. At Oregon. Number 7 preseason team in the country, Oregon. If they win that game but wind up going 10-2, of course they'll be able to put that feather in their cap and be in the conversation. Those are the only schedules. And look, I'm even giving Oklahoma State a lot of benefit of the doubt there. There are some other ones that I could maybe talk myself into, but from a team standpoint, I just can't see it. I put Mike Gundy there because that's one of the more high-profile non-conference games the Big 12 actually has this year. Like Colorado plays Georgia Tech, pretty solid game. I don't know if that does enough for them, but it does something. The ACC, on the other hand, listen to this list. And again, just think of the formula that I just laid out. You go unbeaten in your non-conference slate and lose 2 games in conference. Entirely possible. Clemson opens the season with LSU, closes at South Carolina. That is the easiest way for the ACC to get 2 teams in. Clemson wins those 2 games. They're a preseason top 10 team already. 2-0 against the SEC. If they lose to Louisville and Georgia Tech, don't play in the conference title game, Clemson's going to get in. The brand power of Clemson feels more SEC Big Ten than it does ACC. They will get in. Duke, a team that I like, has got Illinois and Tulane. Now, Tulane's a Group of 5 team, a darn good one of the 2 or 3 best Group of 5 playoff odds teams in the country this year. But Illinois, preseason number 12, that would put you in the conversation. Florida State, I don't think they're that good. Other people do. Maybe I'm wrong. They've got Alabama and at Florida on the schedule. Georgia Tech goes at Colorado, and they play Georgia at home last week of the regular season. Miami, talked about them a bit yesterday, has got Notre Dame and Florida. You win those games, lose 2 in the ACC, you're going to be viewed differently than if you lose those games and go unbeaten in the ACC but lose the ACC title game and you're sitting there at 10-3. That is going to be viewed differently, I think, by the committee. Pitt goes at West Virginia. By the way, Pitt started 7-0 last year. Don't hate. At West Virginia, you'd need the Mountaineers to be really good, but they play Notre Dame, national runners-up. SMU has got Baylor and TCU on the schedule. Is that enough? Could at least get you close. If Baylor and TCU are both really good in the top 25, it could warrant a discussion. Here's the one, do I think Virginia Tech or Syracuse are good enough teams to get there? Probably not, but it wouldn't be the craziest thing that I've ever seen. Arizona State was picked last and just won the Big 12. Virginia Tech has got South Carolina and Vanderbilt. You would need Vanderbilt to be good. I think South Carolina is really good. But how about Syracuse? Gauntlet of an ACC slate. If they find a way to beat Tennessee and they win at Notre Dame, yeah, it's a consideration. So if your gut instinct is, they're going to be one bid leagues. Yeah, it's more likely, it seems, the ACC is going to get two teams into the Big 12, but it's not impossible. So that's the optimism I begin with here on a Friday. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hit me up on Twitter, all of that good stuff. Do you want to hear about the Kansas Jayhawks from one of the guys who will be on the team this year? You're going to do that later on the show. First, this episode brought to you by Wayfair. As summer winds down, there's something nice about getting back into a routine you love, and Wayfair makes it easy to set yourself up for the season ahead. From bedding and linens to storage solutions for every room, Wayfair is your one-stop shop to refresh your home. If you want to redecorate a space, if you want to get some furniture, if you want to make sure your space looks the way that you need it to feel comfortable and get into a routine, which I'm a big fan of. I'm a huge routine guy. Wayfair is here to help with a wide selection. They can fit every style that you are looking for. Get organized, refreshed, and back to routine for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair. Every style, every home. I do like Kansas this year. I think. Last year I loved Kansas, and it wasn't quite there. Can they get it back this year? They have one of the most experienced quarterbacks in college football. So before I make my record prediction, get a listen to this interview. Thrilled to be joined here on the pod by one of the top transfer portal additions for the Kansas Jayhawks this year. Eman Henderson from Hartford, Alabama to Lawrence, Kansas is where his journey has taken him after a few years at Alabama. Before we get to this season, Eman, and thanks for being on the show, my guy, talk about that journey. You spent a few seasons in Tuscaloosa. Why was Kansas the right choice for you?
It's been a long journey, man. But, me entering the transfer portal, I wanted to go somewhere that felt like home to me and felt like they were going to give me a great opportunity.
When you were exploring the different options, and I'm sure you had several, you had plenty of offers coming out of high school, borderline 5-star recruit, depending on which service you look at. How did you narrow it down to Kansas? What was it like fielding all those different offers?
Feeling like where I would be most comfortable and where I would fit in the offense, and who would utilize me. And I feel like Kansas was a great place to pick. You're
coming to a place where Jalen Daniels is entering, year 11 at quarterback is what do you guys give him crap about that in the locker room?
We have jokes here and there, we do small things like that. We do.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly feels like he's been there for a while, but he's been incredibly productive. Did him being there factor into your decision at all? Was he a part of your recruitment to the Jayhawks?
Most definitely. We definitely connected throughout my process in the transfer portal, but he's been doing amazing. He's a great person also to be around.
In your time so far working with him since you got to Kansas, what would have been maybe a couple of things that have stood out most about what he does at the quarterback position?
His leadership, he's a great leader, I feel like. But outside of that, he's a people person. He talk very well. He's just great to be around. I feel like being around him, he made others better too.
How has it been, in the lead up to the season? Obviously, you guys going through fall camp right now, and somehow football is just a couple of weeks away, which is exciting. I think for all of us, that off season starts to get really, really long. But has there been a point of emphasis that you guys have really tried to drive home offensively as you've worked your way into a new system?
Most definitely. The off season, quarterbacks and with the wide receiver, we all been put in hours of time, learn the system and, getting this offense down. So it's been going great.
Now, at Kansas football, for most of my lifetime, Eman, has not been a destination sort of place, really, for anyone. And Lance Leipold has really changed that over the last couple of years. What do you like most about your head coach?
He's big on culture, and that was a big thing to me coming in here. I feel like it's a great program for culture, and not only what the thing they do for you for football, but the things outside of football, and outside of football also when I'm talking about like life-wise, things like that, just life situational, like paying bills and things like that. Most people, young guys don't know really about a lot that, but they really, I feel like they really harp on it.
Has it been difficult for you in this era of college football navigating NIL and the portal at the same time to figure out how you can put yourself in the best situation to succeed?
For me, I don't really worry about NIL. I feel like as you play and continue to do all the right thing, that would come. So that wasn't like a big thing on my mind, really.
You talked about the culture that Coach Leipold has established there in Lawrence, and it's been one of the biggest, I think, branding turnarounds in the country over the last couple of years. You look at Kurt Cignetti at Indiana, it'd be, the same sort of thing where they've been down for a really long time. All of a sudden, there are expectations. Now, you obviously couldn't have known this unless you're an everydayer for my show, which, hey, man, I'd appreciate that. But last year, infamously at this point, some host of this podcast picked Kansas to make the Big 12 championship game. Now, the Big 12 is very deep. It is very competitive. Kansas, you were not a part of that team, so I don't hold you accountable for making me look just a little bit wrong there. But that team, I don't think accomplished all the goals that they'd set out before the season. A couple of questions along those lines. How do you feel the culture has shifted for this program over the last couple of years? I know you just got there, but certainly you've seen it from afar. And Coach Leipold has elevated the standard. What is it like to be in Kansas right now on a football program at a traditionally basketball school where all of a sudden there are expectations that you can be one of the top teams in the conference?
Most definitely. The culture here has been amazing. Coming in, we've been working since I hit the ground, since the first day I came in. So I feel like, the standard has been set high. Just come in and do your job. It's been going good though. We've been working hard this off season and we've been training our butts off. So we just ready to go out there and showcase what we can do.
You committed to play for arguably, and in my view, the greatest coach in the history of college football, and Nick Saban down at Alabama. What's it been like going from that program to Kansas? What's different about those two places?
It's not really nothing different, really. Leipold, he harp on the standard, and I feel like that was one of the big things. Saban was saying the same thing. So me just keeping that in my mind, continue to get better each and every day and blocking out the outside noise, that was one of the big things for me.
How is it for you and your teammates to try and block out the outside noise? Because there's a lot of it now. I of all people am aware of that. There are a lot of shows, a lot of people sounding off, and I mean, you guys are young. You know how to use technology. You're on your phones, on the internet, whatnot. How do you steer clear of all that and just keep the main thing the main thing?
I feel like keeping yourself busy with like football, training room, things like that is hard to stand around the facility. I feel like that's an easy way to stay out of trouble and block out the good noise, Things like prayers and things like that, that's another amazing way to block out the outside noise.
What are your expectations for yourself coming into this year in this Kansas offense?
Continue to be a great teammate, doing everything I can do to help this team win and, just be there for my brothers.
What are your expectations on the offensive side of the ball, just, holistically?
Explosive.
Explosive is a good word. All right, we'll wrap with a couple of fun questions here. What is your favorite thing to do when you are not playing football?
Oh, easy. Fishing. I fish all the time.
My man. Okay. I've gotten into this summer. Mm-hmm. I've fished a little bit in the past, but that was only with other people. This year, my dad's kind of gotten me into it and showed me more things. What do you like most about going out and fishing? I love that answer.
You just clear your mind, just go out there. It's very quiet, so it's not called catching. So you just go out there and fish. You may not catch nothing every time, but it's very peaceful to go do.
Do you have places where you go in the Lawrence area where you go fish?
I don't know specifically, but I done been to a couple ponds around here with a couple of my teammates. So.
Nice. I love that. Do you have any pregame rituals or traditions that you just have to do or else you feel like your head's not going to be in the right space?
Not really. Make sure I eat a steak before a game. That's why I'll probably say
A steak before every game.
The night before a game. I'll probably say eat a steak. Yeah.
Night before. Gotta have a steak. Last question for you here, Eman. I look at things and talk about things like schedules all the time. For you guys in the locker room, how much does that come across your radar when you're thinking about a season or what your expectations are?
For us, man, we just want to take it one game at a time. We don't want to look down the schedule, and we just, we worry about Fresno State for week 1 and how we can get better each and every day.
Awesome, man. Eman, Henderson, Kansas, wide receiver, running back, a little bit of both this year?
Wide receiver, man.
Wide receiver this year for the Jayhawks, man. Appreciate the time. Thanks for stopping by.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I did not make this record prediction for Kansas just because I had Eman on the show and he likes to fish, which I'm here for. I landed 8-4. Vegas is so good at win totals. Our friends at FanDuel are just dynamite. I don't look at the win total before I pick the schedule, and then I always seem to land on records that are either a half game over or a half game under what the total ends up being. I have 8-4 here for Kansas. Notable games, they play at Missouri in an old Big 12 showdown in week 3, one of the more under-the-radar non-conference games in the country. Tigers favored by 6.5 according to FanDuel. They have to go at Texas Tech, then play Kansas State at home. That's a tough stretch in the latter part of their season. They also have to go at Iowa State. They do end with Utah. I think they can get an upset win there. Kansas is a very variable team to me because the schedule doesn't allow them to have these prolonged stretches of, you can kind of cool off. Maybe a little bit, after the Missouri game when you go West Virginia, Cincinnati, UCF. But then it's right back into the gauntlet on the back half. I mean, even a road game at Arizona, I don't know if that's going to be a cupcake either. So I'll land 8-4, give Lance Leipold, a coach who I like, who I've seen win with this program over the last several years. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say Kansas goes over 7.5 at 8-4, but I think they'll be right in that sort of range this year. It's Friday. Do you know what that means? G5 Friday. First, this episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL preseason predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1, this is your moment. If you want anything college football related, it's all over there, folks. Games that start next week. Next week, we'll have honest-to-goodness college football games. Kansas, who I talked about earlier, plays Fresno State. Farmageddon played in Ireland for reasons nobody understands. If you want to bet on these games or any more throughout the season, FanDuel's the place to go. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. August 26th. FanDuel, play your game. Welcome to G5 Friday. Today's squad, the Aztecs of San Diego State. Christian Rao of Locked On Kansas State is here to discuss because why the heck not? Because Christian's a cool guy. He knows college football, and we're talking San Diego State today. So, interesting team in the Mountain West, because this is a program that we have seen reach some very high highs. Double-digit win seasons, conference championship seasons. It wasn't all that long ago. And over the last couple of years, it's been going downhill. Now, I want to like San Diego State more going into 2025 than I do. I don't hate them. I think 4.5 is too low of a win total. The reason I don't think it's higher, the reason I'm not going to pick them to get more than the 6 wins that I have logged into my official prediction document, Christian, as far as Mountain West schedules go, this one is not exactly favorable. Now, the Aztecs have been aggressive in the transfer portal, which can have its ups, Kurt Cignetti at Indiana, and downs, Mike Norvell at Florida State. My faith that the Aztecs double their win total from last year, which in and of itself would be a successful season since they went 3-9 last year, my belief is mostly in Sean Lewis. They just named Jaden Denegar their starting quarterback, who has attempted 5 passes in his career. That's the same 5 that fits on one hand. So my faith is in Sean Lewis. He went from 2 wins to 7 wins during his time at Kent State as the head coach. I've always liked him. I always thought it was a solid hire. There's some faith there. But Christian, your reaction to the Aztecs going into this year in what is once again a really darn solid Mountain West?
Yeah, I think that is the understatement right there. And because the schedule they have too is not an easy one in this Mountain West Conference. I think five's the magic number for a lot of things for San Diego State this year. You just mentioned Jaden Denegal, their new starting quarterback, only about 5 passing attempts in his college career. Their running back, Lucky Patton, only had 5 carries last year. He's going to be the new stud, somebody that they have to replace 200 and something carries from their running back workhorse from last season. And the reason I say 5, I think, is the lucky number is because that's where I think they're going to sit. I think they are going to improve, Spencer. They're going to be better than what 3-9 was last year. And I do believe in Sean Lewis to continue that path forward. But I think they're going to be just shy of the bowl game. And it's not because of what Sean Lewis isn't doing. I think that his new Aztec fast offense that he's trying to establish and install here is going to work eventually. But I think he has to still continue to build it up. We saw what happened last year with Danny O'Neal. I mean, what a tough kid Danny O'Neal was last year, being put into the fire, wound up now being the backup for Wisconsin. But I think there's just a lot of question marks that I still have about San Diego State to make me not want to say they're a bowl team yet. But I do think 5-7 is a very solid and real, dare I say, respectable season for them next year.
Yeah, I think they're a ways out, particularly in the trenches, from being where they have to get in order to really be a Mountain West contender and therefore a college football playoff contender as well. I do believe this program, starting in the Pac-12 next year, fully capable of getting to the point where they win that league. You think about the recruiting base they have access to. Their brand is pretty solid. Clearly, they can go out and get a solid number of transfers, but I'm with you that I don't think they have, an Arizona State year 2 sort of jump like they had in the Big 12, where they went 3-9 first year in the Big 12. Boom, they go win the conference 11-2 and in the college football playoff. The schedule, for those who don't have it memorized, which I suspect is most of you out there, this is a win total of 4.5, which I think it's instinctually I said, oh, that's too low. Then I looked at the schedule and went, oh, okay, now I see it.
It's a pretty good number.
Yeah. They open with Stony Brook at home, and that's not going to be a problem. At least it shouldn't be. Then they go at Washington State. That's not an easy place to play. I can't pick them to win that game. Mm-hmm. Then they play Cal at home. I think we will know if you and I are wrong on San Diego State at that point, Christian, because if they find a way to win either of those games, I know Washington State has a new coach, a lot of new players coming over from South Dakota State. If they're able to win in Pullman or beat a Cal team that also has a lot of transfer portal chaos from the offseason, but is still an ACC school, could still be a bowl game in that league, if they win either of those games, San Diego State will turn heads.
Which one do you like more than the other? If you
I have to go with Cal because they're at home. But I'm talking 51-49. Because I think roster-wise, even with all the underchange or all the change that's been undertaken at Washington State, I still think Cal's roster is going to be closer to a respectable Power 4 team, just by lieu of the fact that they, have got access to ACC resources. They've brought in a bunch of transfers as well that are of average higher caliber than what Washington State's brought in. So I'll lean Cal because it's at home, and Pullman is a really hard place to play. But if I had a scheduling choice to give San Diego State, I would love to flip those games.
Yeah, I think that's a swing game, at least in the non-conference, right? When you talk about some of the games, I think Washington State's a tough one for them, but I do think that they could potentially set the tone against Cal. That would be the one to really, as you mentioned, it could be like the breakout game for Sean Lewis and really show what he has. It'll be 2 games with Denegal as their quarterback. Hopefully there's no injury concerns. And then we'll see what he can do with guys like Lucky in the backfield, with Jordan Napier, who's supposed to be this amazing wide receiver 1 in his next season coming in, already getting some preseason awards, being on some watch lists, as well as being one of the most versatile players in the G5. And we'll see what that offensive line does, right? You mentioned the offensive line. You're not sure if you think they're enough in the trenches. Well, you got to remember last year, in the first quarter, they lost their left tackle for the entire year. So they're trying to see what's going to happen and see if they can solidify that offensive line, one that they struggle with injuries, one that they struggle with penalties because of this fast offensive movement that Sean Lewis has. So if they can find a way to solidify that, lots of moving parts, lots of questions, I'm well aware of it. You might find them shocking the system once or twice this season.
Yeah, the Group 5 games then play out the rest of their schedule after Washington State and Cal, former Pac-12 members, for a future Pac-12 member. How about that? At Northern Illinois and hosting Colorado State is by no measure an easy stretch of football, lest we forget that Northern Illinois beat the national runners-up last year on their home field. And Colorado State has been a rock-solid program for the last couple of years. Then they go at Nevada, sneaky tough game, because Jeff Choate's a pretty solid coach, it seems. At Fresno State, that's not a very tough game. And then Wyoming, at Hawaii, and Boise State, San Jose State, at New Mexico. So the back half there, Christian, they're not a lot of gimme games. San Jose State, solid. Hawaii on the road could be tough. Long trip, of course. Things get weird. I don't think Hawaii's great. I don't think they're terrible. At least you have Boise State at home. At New Mexico, first-year head coach. All right, I'll give San Diego State the advantage there. But I just look at the back half of the schedule and go, boy, you just didn't catch a lot of the teams that I expect to be towards the bottom of the Mountain West.
Yeah, I'm with you at that. I think you have to find ways to get wins against Wyoming and Hawaii in the middle of your schedule there, just to even think about bowl eligibility. Hopefully you can find a way to split your non-conference, as we mentioned, maybe even go 3-1. That would be insanely good. And then I think the last game of the season at New Mexico has the feelings of a potential revenge game. Maybe that can help you out there, but I'm not very hopeful as well when it comes to San Diego State getting to that bowl eligibility, because the schedule is really tough. They did not really miss anything. You didn't get Air Force. You wound up getting Wyoming, great, but other than that, not too much that can help you there. I'm going to sit at 5-7 though. I do think you're going to see some improvement from Sean Lewis's offense. I do think that you're going to get some nice improvement on the defensive side. They do have a brand new defensive coordinator coming in. He was with the linebackers last year. Him getting promoted to defensive coordinator was why they had a lot of great retention. Trey Lewis, who had 12.5 sacks last year, no one really talks about them because everybody thinks of the G5 defensive end like Mike Green from Marshall, but it's Trey Lewis that's going to be that guy this year. And then I think their secondary is very underrated. So give me 5-7 with a potential for a bowl win, to get to the bowls, I should say.
You hear that, San Diego State fans? I like you more than Christian Rao. Yeah, just document that one. Just stash it away in your head. A whole game, but that would give them an extra game in the season, of course. But progress, I think, is what they're striving for here. And like a number of future Pac-12 schools, you want to have momentum going into that year. There's going to be so much new excitement and energy surrounding all of these programs. I think that I talked about this with Oregon State. It applies to any school that's going into the Pac-12. Going into the transfer portal cycle next year, you want to sell. Look at the upward trajectory our program has got, and we're about to make a jump into the Pac-12.
And I'll add this, Spencer, as well. One thing that they have going for them that not many schools in the country has is how good they do recruiting locally. How many San Diego County kids they have in the area, Southern Cal kids they have in the program. You don't get that anymore with this new transfer portal NIL world. I think that's going to do great for them when they become part of the new pack.
There are worse places to be for a recruiting footprint or for a vacation. San Diego, great city. I went there with my family earlier this year in February, and that was a long time ago. That was way away from football season, and now football season is near. Christian Rao, great stuff as always, my man. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. Until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.